What if everything you thought you knew about Warhammer 40K was wrong? For decades, fans of the Grimdark universe have been taught a simple story. The Imperium of Man is humanity's savior, a shining beacon of order in a galaxy of darkness. And chaos? Chaos is the ultimate evil, a force of destruction, corruption, and horror that must be stopped at all costs. But what if I told you that perspective is only part of the story? That in a galaxy as cruel and unforgiving as the 41st Millennium, the so-called villains, chaos, might actually be the moral choice? Today, we're going to challenge centuries of imperial propaganda. We're going to dive deep into galaxy's most terrifying truths and explore why, when you look beyond the skull-masked banners of the Imperium and the fire of their genocidal crusades, chaos isn't just evil. It's freedom. It's individuality. It's a choice. Now, don't get me wrong. Chaos is destructive. It is terrifying. It mutates, it kills, and it consumes. But that is only one side of the story. In a galaxy where billions are crushed beneath bureaucratic oppression, where entire worlds are sacrificed in the name of blind faith, and where the Emperor of Mankind rules with iron authority over lives he barely acknowledges, can we honestly say that the Imperium is good? Or are they just a galaxy-sized dictatorship hiding behind a facade of righteousness? Chaos represents something the Imperium fears more than anything else. Freedom. Freedom from oppression. Freedom to think, to act, to pursue your desires, even if that path is dangerous. It represents a rejection of the endless, soul-crushing monotony of imperial life on a hive world where citizens are born into filth, forced into endless labor and fed propaganda from birth until death. The Imperium's definition of good looks an awful lot like slavery. And yet, we celebrate it because the alternative wears the mantle of fear. Chaos. Throughout this video, we will explore several layers of the Chaos universe. We'll look at the philosophy behind the Chaos gods, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, and understand how each of them represents truths about existence that the Imperium denies. We'll examine characters who have chosen chaos, not for mindless destruction, but for survival, justice, or self-realization. We'll even question the morality of the Emperor himself and ask the uncomfortable question. In a universe without absolute morality, is chaos really the villain, or is the Imperium the true monster? By the end of this video, your perception of Warhammer 40K might be completely turned on its head. You may find yourself questioning the narratives you've accepted for years. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, morality is not black and white. It is shades of gray. And chaos? Maybe chaos is the only path that still values choice. So buckle up, because for the next hour, we're diving headfirst into the shadows of the Imperium, into the flames of rebellion, and into minds of those who embrace chaos, and in doing so, discovered what it truly means to be free. When most people think of Warhammer 40K, they picture the Imperium of Man as humanity's last, shining hope. The Emperor of Mankind is a godlike savior. The Space Marines are humanity's protectors. And the galaxy is a dangerous, chaotic void that must be tamed. From this perspective, chaos is the clear villain, mindless, destructive, and corrupting. But if we peel back the layers of imperial propaganda, the story looks very different. The Imperium of Man is vast, spanning millions of worlds across the galaxy, but that scale hides a brutal, unrelenting truth. It is a galaxy-wide dictatorship. Entire planets are sacrificed for the so-called greater good. Hive worlds, home to billions of human citizens, are nothing more than overcrowded industrial prisons, where life is cheap and suffering is the norm. From the moment a child is born, their path is decided by the Imperium. They will toil, obey, fight, and die, all in service to a system that treats them as little more than cogs in a galaxy-sized machine. Death is not a tragedy. It is a release. And this is just the beginning. The Imperium is fanatically religious, enforcing a cult of worship around the Emperor. Heresy is punished with unimaginable cruelty. Any dissent is met with execution, torture, or worse. Entire worlds have been purged simply for questioning authority. Genocides are common. The bureaucracy is suffocating, and the people have no agency, no voice, no hope beyond servitude. Now, let's contrast that with chaos. The first thing many people notice is obvious. Chaos is destructive. It twists, it mutates, and it spreads corruption. But chaos also represents something the Imperium cannot tolerate: freedom. Those who embrace chaos are free to choose their path. They are not bound by doctrine, hierarchy, or arbitrary moral codes. They are free to grow, change, and pursue their desires, even if that path is dangerous, even if it leads to conflict. In a universe dominated by oppression, this freedom is radical, almost revolutionary. Chaos also exposes the hypocrisy of the Imperium. The Imperium claims to be good, but how many billions of lives are destroyed in its name? How many worlds are stripped bare? How many innocents sacrificed? How much suffering endured? All under the banner of order and protection? Meanwhile, a chaos war band may burn a city in pursuit of conquest, yes, but their actions are often motivated by survival, vengeance, or the pursuit of personal truth. In a galaxy where morality is a luxury, the Imperium operates under a system that is indifferent to life, while chaos embraces the messy, complex realities of existence. Consider the lens of perspective. If you were a hive world citizen, born into filth, laboring endlessly, witnessing your neighbors starve while the imperial bureaucrats feast in comfort, who would you call evil? The Imperium, which enforces your misery and condemns you to a life of suffering, or chaos, which offers choice, power, and the possibility of escape? From this perspective, the so-called villain is not so clear-cut. In essence, the Imperium thrives on oppression, obedience, and control. Chaos thrives on freedom, individuality, and adaptability. One demands compliance at the cost of life and happiness. The other allows for self-determination, even if that path is dangerous and unpredictable. In a galaxy with no absolutes, morality is not dictated by who fires the first shot. It is dictated by who enables life, choice, and agency. So, before labeling chaos as evil, we have to ask ourselves, in a universe dominated by oppression, is it really the villains who are corrupt, or is it the so-called heroes who have built a galaxy-sized machine of suffering? When people hear the word chaos in Warhammer 40K, they often think of mindless destruction, corruption, and war. They imagine world aflame, mutations everywhere, and armies of horrific monstrosities. But that is only the surface. Beneath the carnage lies philosophy, a framework of thought that challenges the Imperium's oppressive ideals and celebrates choice, change, and self-realization. To understand why chaos might actually be the good guys, we have to look at its core, the chaos gods themselves. Chaos in Warhammer 40K is not monolithic. It is a reflection of the universe itself, a mirror of human nature and the raw forces of existence. There are 4 major chaos gods: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, and each embodies fundamental truths about life, freedom, and the human condition. While the Imperium demands obedience, uniformity, and suppression of desires, chaos celebrates the individual. Let's examine them one by one. Khorne is the god of war, anger, and passion. Many assume he is merely a destroyer, a bloodthirsty monster, but Khorne represents the pursuit of action and personal conviction. He embodies the truth that life is struggle, and that action, not passivity, is a core of existence. Where the Imperium forces obedience and bureaucracy, Khorne rewards strength, courage, and the will to act. There is dignity in fighting for your beliefs, even if it is violent, and Khorne reflects this primal, uncompromising truth. Tzeentch, the god of change, knowledge, and manipulation, embodies evolution. He represents adaptability, intelligence, and the inevitability of transformation. While the Imperium fears change, enforcing rigid hierarchies and stifling creativity, Tzeentch celebrates it. Change is survival. Innovation is progress. In a galaxy dominated by stagnation and oppression, Tzeentch offers hope to those willing to think for themselves, to challenge the status quo, and to shape their own destiny. Nurgle, the god of decay, disease, and resilience, is often misunderstood as purely grotesque or evil, but Nurgle embodies acceptance. He teaches that suffering, mortality, and impermanence are universal truths, and that there is strength in acknowledging them rather than denying them. Where the Imperium condemns weakness and seeks impossible perfection, Nurgle offers comfort, endurance, and even joy in the inevitability of life's hardships. To embrace Nurgle is to face reality and survive despite it, a philosophy that the Imperium cannot comprehend. Finally, Slaanesh, the god of pleasure, ambition, and excess, embodies desire. While often seen as indulgent or corrupting, Slaanesh represents self-actualization and the pursuit of individual excellence. In a universe where the Imperium suppresses emotion, creativity, and personal ambition, Slaanesh celebrates them. Pleasure, ambition, and passion are not sins. They are the fuel of life, the sparks that drive change, growth, and individuality. When you examine these four gods together, a pattern emerges. Chaos is not mindless evil. It is a mirror of human nature amplified. It challenges the suffocating structure of the Imperium, asking fundamental questions. Why should we obey blindly? Why must suffering be ignored until death? Why deny desire, change, and individuality in the name of order? Chaos encourages choice. It accepts imperfection. It acknowledges the darker, messier truths of existence, rather than pretending they do not exist. In that sense, chaos offers what the Imperium cannot: honesty, agency, and freedom. The Imperium claims morality while committing atrocities in its name. Chaos acts openly, even violently, but it does so with clarity and purpose. In a universe where billions suffer for bureaucracy and blind faith, chaos is radical, liberating, and, even if misunderstood, morally compelling. It is not evil because it destroys, but because it allows life to exist on its own terms, rather than under the crushing weight of an oppressive regime. Understanding the philosophy of chaos is the first step towards seeing them not as villains, but as agents of freedom in a galaxy that has forgotten the meaning of choice. When we think of chaos in Warhammer 40K, images of monstrous warriors, fire, and mutation often come to mind. But behind the violence and corruption lies a deeper truth. Chaos is fundamentally about freedom. In a galaxy dominated by the Imperium's crushing bureaucracy, fanatical religion, and relentless oppression, chaos offers something that the Imperium cannot: choice. And in that choice, we find a form of heroism. The Imperium is the ultimate authoritarian system. From the hive world worker to the lowliest guardsman, every citizen exists to serve the machine. Lives are expendable. Death is routine. Individuality is crushed beneath the weight of obedience and ritual. And yet, despite this, the Imperium presents itself as the moral standard, the protector of humanity. Chaos, by contrast, does not hide its intent. It does not pretend to be righteous. It does not demand blind obedience. It acts with clarity, even if that action is destructive. And in a galaxy where survival often requires moral compromise, that honesty becomes a form of liberation. Consider the actions of chaos warbands. At first glance, they appear to be marauders, looting and destroying in their path. But if we examine their motivations, a more nuanced picture emerges. Many war bands are formed not out of mindless malice, but as a response to oppression. Worlds that have been enslaved, populations starved, or planets stripped of resources often turn to chaos as a means of survival and resistance. To the citizens of these worlds, the Chaos Warriors may be the only hope of liberation from the Imperium's tyranny. Take, for example, the followers of Abaddon the Despoiler. Abaddon is not simply a destroyer. He is a strategist, a revolutionary of sorts, seeking to dismantle the corrupt, stagnant Imperium. His crusades are violent, yes, but they challenge a system that has failed billions. His followers, bound by loyalty and choice, operate under a banner that celebrates individuality and self-determination rather than enforced conformity. Where the Imperium demands unquestioning obedience, Abaddon and his warriors act according to their own principles, even if those principles are harsh. Chaos champions are often individuals who have been crushed by the Imperium's machinery, soldiers forced into endless wars, scholars silenced for questioning dogma, entire populations enslaved or purged. Their turn to chaos is not mindless rebellion. It is a fight for survival, for agency, and for the right to define their own destinies. They are the freedom fighters of the 41st millennium, operating in a moral landscape where the so-called good guys are indifferent to the suffering they cause. Even in their brutality, chaos encourages personal growth. Warriors who embrace Khorne are not punished for embracing their anger. They are strengthened by it. Those who follow Tzeentch are rewarded for cunning and adaptability. Nurgle's followers endure hardship with resilience, and Slaanesh's devotees pursue excellence and ambition without shame. This emphasis on self-realization and personal power stands in stark contrast to the Imperium, which punishes deviation from the norm. From a broader perspective, chaos forces the Imperium to confront its own hypocrisy. The Imperium claims morality and justice, yet it sacrifices billions for compliance and control. Chaos, by contrast, offers a brutal but honest alternative. It says, you can live on your own terms, even if the path is dangerous. It embraces the messy reality of the galaxy, rather than pretending suffering and oppression do not exist. In a universe without absolutes, this commitment to freedom, this refusal to bow to tyranny, is a kind of heroism. Ultimately, Chaos's freedom fighters challenges us to reconsider what it means to be good. They are not altruistic in the Imperium sense. They do not protect life for the sake of order, but they do fight for autonomy, self-determination, and choice, qualities that the Imperium systematically denies. In that light, the villain of Warhammer 40K may, paradoxically, be the only ones fighting for what we might call moral truth, the right to exist on one's own terms. In the grim darkness of the far future, the Emperor of Mankind is often portrayed as the ultimate savior of humanity, a godlike figure who unites a fractured galaxy, defends humanity from alien threats, and provides order in the face of chaos. From a perspective of imperial propaganda, he is perfection incarnate, wise, powerful, and just. But when we peel back the layers of myth, the reality is far darker. The Emperor is not the benevolent father of humanity that the Imperium claims he is. He is a ruler whose vision demanded obedience, sacrifice, and the subjugation of billions of lives for the sake of an abstract greater good. Consider the Imperium under his rule, or rather, the Imperium as it exists in the 41st millennium. Humanity is trapped under a galaxy-wide bureaucracy that crushes individual thought, freedom, and creativity. On hive worlds, life is a cycle of labor, filth, and indoctrination. Planets are sacrificed without hesitation, billions of lives extinguished so that a strategic goal can be met. And all of this is done in the Emperor's name, justified as necessary for the survival of the species. But is the survival of the species truly heroic if it comes at the cost of moral choice, happiness, and personal freedom? The Emperor demanded obedience above all else. The Adeptus Astartes, his superhuman space marines, were tools of war, bred for loyalty, violence, and unquestioning service. Even his favored sons, the Primarchs, were subjected to manipulation, control, and exploitation, forced to follow his grand vision without true autonomy. Dissent was not tolerated, and individuality was a liability. The Emperor's vision of order was not about protecting humanity. It was about controlling it. Chaos, in stark contrast, represents the very thing the Emperor feared: freedom. Where the Emperor imposed rigid hierarchies, chaos offers choice. Where he demanded obedience, chaos rewards initiative. Where he denied emotion, desire, and ambition, chaos embraces them. In a universe dominated by the Imperium's authoritarian structures, chaos is not simply rebellion. It is liberation. It is a refusal to accept a system that views human life as a resource to be consumed. Take the example of those who turned to chaos after suffering under imperial rule. Soldiers forced into endless wars, citizens oppressed by unfeeling bureaucrats, population stripped of autonomy, all find in chaos a means of reclaiming their agency. Even if the methods are brutal, even if the paths are dangerous, the underlying principle is clear: the right to live, act, and choose for oneself. In a galaxy where choice is systematically eradicated, chaos becomes a moral alternative by default. The Emperor's so-called morality is rooted in control, not justice. Entire civilizations are destroyed if they refuse compliance. The lives of billions are sacrificed for strategic advantage, often without their consent. Meanwhile, chaos warriors fight openly, transparently, and often with a code, albeit a harsh one, that honors personal conviction and autonomy. The Imperium's good is predicated on obedience. Chaos's evil is predicated on freedom. When viewed through that lens, the moral lines blur. Even the Emperor himself, for all his genius and foresight, demonstrates that absolute power corrupts even the noblest intentions. His vision of a unified, obedient humanity ignores the fundamental truth of sentient life, that autonomy, choice, and individuality are inseparable from true morality. By denying these, he created a universe in which chaos is not just a threat. It is a corrective force, an expression of the very freedoms the Imperium crushes. In essence, the Emperor's tyranny is not accidental. It is a foundation of the Imperium itself. And in opposition, chaos is a rebellion, the liberator and the champion of self-determination. Where the Imperium imposes order through fear, chaos inspires action through choice. Where the Emperor demands subservience, chaos celebrates the messy, unpredictable, and often dangerous realities of life. And in that contrast, we begin to see why chaos might not be evil at all. It might, in fact, be the only true alternative to tyranny in the 41st millennium. When we talk about chaos in Warhammer 40K, it's easy to think in broad strokes: armies of demons, mutated warriors, and worlds set aflame. But the truth, and the reason chaos might be seen as a moral alternative, comes down to individuals. The galaxy is not shaped by abstract forces alone. It is shaped by choices, motivations, and the stories of those who act within it. And the stories of chaos champions are far more nuanced than the Imperium's propaganda would have you believe. Take Abaddon the Despoiler, the most infamous of all chaos champions. To the Imperium, he is the embodiment of evil, a harbinger of endless war. But consider his perspective. Abaddon witnessed the Imperium's stagnation firsthand, saw its endless corruption and bureaucracy, and understood that the Emperor's Order often came at the cost of billions of lives. His crusades, while violent and destructive, are not mindless. They are strikes against a system that perpetuates suffering, a challenge to a galaxy-sized tyranny that crushes freedom under the weight of its own dogma. Abaddon fights not just for power, but for a vision of agency, freedom from the Imperium's suffocating grip. Then there is Angron, the pre-march of the World Eaters. Angron's story is one of tragedy and oppression. He was forced into slavery, implanted with the butcher's nails, which drove him to rage and violence. The Imperium's so-called saviors created a living weapon, stripping him of choice and inflicting unimaginable suffering. When Angron turned to chaos, it was not for power alone. It was an act of rebellion, a desperate reclamation of his autonomy. His ferocity is terrifying, yes, but it is also born from a struggle against injustice. In his violence, we see the consequences of oppression and the morality of fighting back when the system itself is monstrous. Lucius the Eternal offers a different perspective. Obsessed with personal glory and the pursuit of excellence, Lucius thrives in a universe where ambition is punished under the Imperium. While the Imperium suppresses individuality and punishes personal pride, Lucius celebrates it. His journey demonstrates that chaos rewards self-realization and skill rather than enforcing conformity. In a galaxy where the bureaucracy kills creativity, Lucius's pursuit of perfection, though violent, is a testament to the human desire to achieve, to shine, and to exist on one's own terms. And then there is Kharn the Betrayer, another figure defined by circumstance and perspective. Kharn's acts of violence are legendary, yet they stem from loyalty, honor, and the desire to act according to his own principles, rather than following an Imperium that systematically sacrifices lives for obedience. His story reminds us that morality in Warhammer 40K is rarely simple. A villain can act with integrity within their own code, while the Imperium enforces atrocity under the guise of righteousness. These individual stories illustrate a broader truth. Chaos champions are not one-dimensional villains. They are complex beings, shaped by oppression, suffering, and circumstance, who choose paths of freedom over subjugation. Their morality is situational, yes, but it is also authentic. They act with awareness, intent, and agency, rather than blindly following dogma imposed by an empire that considers its citizens expendable. When we examine the Imperium, even its most celebrated heroes, the Space Marines, the Primarchs, often act under orders that ignore morality in favor of obedience. Billions die, and the galaxy continues unchanged. Chaos champions, by contrast, fight with purpose for themselves and for the ideals of choice, autonomy, and self-determination. They are the embodiment of the principle that freedom is worth fighting for, even if the methods are extreme, even if the consequences are horrific. In the end, these stories challenge a narrative that chaos is evil simply because it opposes the Imperium. By examining their motivations, struggles, and actions, we see that chaos champions often act in ways that are morally compelling, fighting oppression, reclaiming autonomy, and refusing to be tools of a galaxy-sized machine. Their stories reveal the human core of chaos, choice, self-realization, and the courage to defy tyranny. And in a universe dominated by the Imperium's tyranny, these individuals might just be the true heroes. The Imperium of Man presents itself as a defender of humanity, the unshakable bastion of order in a chaotic galaxy. Its soldiers, bureaucrats, and fanatical priests claim to protect life, uphold morality, and preserve civilization. But beneath the towering cathedrals and fortified hive worlds lies a sobering truth. The Imperium is a machine of stagnation. It resists change, crushes innovation, and enforces conformity at the cost of freedom and progress. In a galaxy where billions of humans are enslaved to a system that denies choice, chaos emerges not as mere destruction, but as necessary disruption. Change terrifies the Imperium. The Emperor and his countless successors demand obedience, compliance, and predictability. Worlds must conform to strict hierarchies. Citizens must accept their station without question. Even thought itself is heavily policed. Innovation is punished. Experimentation is forbidden, and dissent is met with extermination. The Imperium's obsession with control creates a galaxy that is frozen in time, advanced in war machines, yes, but stagnant in thought, culture, and morality. This is a universe where life exists not to flourish, but to serve. Chaos, in contrast, thrives on the very elements the Imperium fears: change, ambition, and unpredictability. The forces of chaos do not bow to a central authority. They evolve. They adapt. They challenge the old ways, breaking the chains of stagnation and enforcing a kind of brutal, honest evolution. Tzeentch, the god of change and fate, embodies this principle perfectly. His followers manipulate reality, bend strategy, and alter outcomes, not for obedience, but for growth, adaptation, and survival. Chaos does not maintain the status quo. It forces a galaxy to confront its truths and evolve beyond them. Even on a smaller scale, chaos warbands demonstrate this principle. They invade worlds, not merely to destroy, but to disrupt. They topple rigid hierarchies, challenge oppression, and create opportunities for individuals to reclaim agency. Where the Imperium demands passivity and obedience, chaos rewards initiative and creativity, even if that initiative is violent or extreme. Change, in the eyes of chaos, is not only inevitable, it is necessary for life to retain meaning in a universe dominated by death and control. Consider the moral implications of this disruption. In a galaxy where the Imperium enforces morality through fear, countless billions suffer silently. Systems that should nurture life instead exploit it. Worlds are sterilized, populations enslaved, and resources plundered, all in the name of order. Chaos intervenes not because it values life in the abstract, but because it values the freedom to live on one's own terms. Destruction, mutation, and transformation are tools to challenge oppression. In that sense, chaos acts as a corrective force, shaking stagnant structures and forcing evolution in a universe that has forgotten the value of choice. The philosophy of chaos versus the Imperium also mirrors real-world ideas of revolution and progress. Societies that resist change eventually collapse under their own rigidity. In Warhammer 40K, the Imperium's obsession with control ensures that its citizens are tools, not people. Chaos, messy and destructive as it may be, offers a vision of dynamism. It reminds us that the galaxy is not static, that life is unpredictable, and that the suppression of change is not virtue, it is tyranny. Ultimately, chaos embodies a principle that life must move, adapt, and assert itself, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Imperium enforces life under compulsion. Chaos allows it under agency. One system crushes the human spirit in the name of order. The other embraces the messy, violent, but profoundly human reality of choice. In a universe defined by war and oppression, sometimes the only good act is to disrupt, to challenge, and to force evolution, exactly what chaos does every day. Through its rebellion against stagnation, its embrace of change, and its insistence on agency, chaos positions itself not as a destroyer of life, but as a liberator of it. In a galaxy where the Imperium enforces death in the name of order, chaos becomes the only force willing to fight for autonomy, progress, and the moral complexity of true freedom.